on, guys? Ultimate Deadpool here, back with a new live stream. I'm going to attempt to do this stream. If it doesn't work in a live stream format, then we will go to a regular video and I'll just edit everything down, despite what I do not want to do. So, we got a couple of new things to start off, so we'll wait till a few people get signed on, and we'll go from there. So once people start signing on, we'll get started. And if nobody gets signed on within the next probably 5 minutes, I'm just going to do this as a regular video. I really hope people sign on to this stream because this is going to be a fun stream. Seriously, nobody? Oh, hey, we got somebody. Who signed on? Hey, Henry, what's up, man? Haven't heard from you in a while. How are things? We're just going to talk about a few new things in this stream, and we're going to kind of talk about the new Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe for when that hopefully starts either this fall or this winter. Financing is a pain right about now, so trying to fund the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe is going to be a pain in the neck right now. But that we got a couple of new things to discuss today and a couple of old things to kind of talk about. So I'm just waiting for a lot of people. Well, maybe not a lot of people, but really anybody is good enough. So, and especially Henry, longtime viewer. So we'll go ahead and just get started. So we got a couple of new things to discuss. Obviously, you know, I have technically, 3 new characters. And then there are actually 4 new additions, plus obviously, you know, 1 or 2 other small things here and there. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So, what do you got? What should I start with first? Should I start with the new stuff or the stuff that already pre-exists? Because it's whatever you guys want to see first. We can do the new stuff, or we can do the old stuff first. Or we can do the pre-exist so we can get a recap. Okay, so recap time. Alright. So, as you guys know, I've been trying to do a metalhead that has his eyes light up red. Because in the original idea, his eyes glow red because his eyes are damaged. So just similar to Darth Vader, he has lenses that go over his eyes, so that way he can see better. And because they're robotic lenses, they glow red, which is what this is right here. So I just finished this morning. He's got a custom swords pack. Now these are not glued together. These are actually wired together with like hot wire. These things are tied together, and then they wrapped actual cloth around it to give it more realism. So that's and then his shell is completely, sorry about that. His back is actually still able to rotate, surprisingly. So he still has quite a bit of movement. His head has limited movement, but it can still move. His arms, you know, are not affected by any stretch of the word. And obviously now his eyes do glow red. Hopefully they don't put off that much of a glare when he's actually being filmed in stop motion animation, because that's going to be really off-putting. Although it would make for a really terrifying effect. So yeah, Metalhead now, or a new version of Metalhead, because this is a clean version of Metalhead. This is like Metalhead, like fresh out. Sorry, internet connections are having an issue. This is Metalhead fresh out of the box, essentially. So that's why there's no real cosmetic damage aside. Ignore this here. Whoops. On his neck. That was not intentional, but you can barely see it anyway. So for now, I'm going to turn his eyes off, and we'll set him off to the side. Second, old but is Darth Vader here. Now, I've had this Darth Vader figure for a few years, but I've always wanted to make his lightsaber light up. And thanks to eBay, I was able to stick a battery pack thing in his back. I can turn a switch on, and voila, his lightsaber lights up. So I can actually use Vader's lightsaber for future videos, and Vader can actually show up in a couple other action figure death battles. And since it's a black wire thing, it actually hides behind his cape relatively well, so I can hide it. And then when the battery gets bad, I can just change the battery. It's just a simple car remote battery. So those are all the old things. We'll get into the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe stuff after we go towards the new things. So first off with the new things is I finally got Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and Marvel Legends. Now, this is obviously the No Way Home version. I did not get an actual one from 2004. Because it's the newer ones are just much better quality, surprisingly. So, not bad. I mean, it looks like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and for those of you who don't know, Tobey Maguire is my favorite Spider-Man because he's just the guy I grew up with. And no disrespect to Tom Holland or Andrew Garfield, I just prefer Tobey Maguire just because he was my first Spider-Man. I grew up watching him as a kid, and he's just, to me, he was always just like the perfect version of Spider-Man. But again, no disrespect to Andrew Garfield or Tom Holland. I love both of their versions of Spider-Man, but to me, Tobey Maguire was the GOAT. Or greatest of all time, or whatever you want to go for. So, really nice detail, actually. I love the way that the blue part is molded. It's a little hard to see, which is exactly how Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man suit was in the trilogy. And then obviously he's got the silver spider on his suit, you know, the standard Tobey Maguire spider, and then the badass red spider on his back. Pretty decent posability, just like all Marvel Legend characters. The joints aren't as loose or as woolly as some of the other Marvel Legends things. So for those of you who may not know this, I am not the biggest fan when it comes to Marvel Legend action figures, just because when I started getting them, they were these things, and this is like, you know, I think it's Captain America, Iron Man from 2007 when the first Iron Man movie came out, or at least what's left of it. And while the design choices look really good, I will say that the Marvel Legend molds and sculpts and everything, those do look good. But it's just like the legs on some of these older figures, and obviously this is an older figure, yes, and some of their newer, but even some of their newer stuff still has this kind of, you know, like just flimsy kind of half-assed quality, and it's never been my thing. But some of their newer stuff, I will admit, is a lot better than what they're used to. In fact, most of the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe is going to be made up of Marvel Legend characters anyway, so you know that goes to show that I've kind of accepted Marvel Legend action figures. It's just the older stuff like this. It kind of steered me into the wrong way of like, oh, well, maybe this is good. No. When I was a kid, I was not a big fan of Marvel Legend action figures, mostly because I didn't know they were Marvel Legend action figures, but still. So, this is actually going to show up somewhere in the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe as a cameo. So, that and several other versions of Iron Man from that movie. So, back to Tobey Maguire. So, there's one small little thing I wish they had done a slightly better on Tobey. Actually, two things. This is going to sound a little weird. His chest is not that flat. Tobey Maguire is not that flat chested. I'm not saying he has, like, you know, pecs or anything, or like, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime level ripped, but he's got, you know, when they did the suit, he had a little bit of muscular build, and this just looks kind of like a standard guy in a suit, which makes sense because, you know, this is supposed to be an older Tobey Maguire. So, you know, he's got to have a little bit of especially if they include the Mayday Parker stuff somewhere in the future. The only other thing I would say is the paint on the head, or the spider webs on the head. I actually ended up having to go back and fix just a little bit because they were not. Yeah, he had muscle padding, but it was I know it was muscle padding, but still, I mean, there was a couple of shots where that was not a muscle suit. But in No Way Home, he probably had the muscle suit. But I know for a fact in most of the original trilogy, that was actually Tobey Maguire with like light padding under the suit to make him look more superhero esque. Um, but there is one tiny thing: is the eyes. The eyes look great, but the black part around the eyes is not supposed to be black. It's supposed to be like a dark silver, which is a minor nitpick, you know. And that's one of the things I love to do with Marvel Legend figures. There's just like tiny little nitpicks and stuff like that, because it's just, you know, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Marvel Legend things, but you know what? This is not bad. When it comes to their props, though, they do a fantastic job at that. But anyway, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man suit is definitely going to show up somewhere in the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe at some point. He's probably not going to wear this suit for a long time, mostly because I want to kind of flesh out his character. Because while we're on that topic, Spider-Man is actually going to be the official beginning of the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe. And the first few, I guess you could say, episodes are going to kind of be his origin story. Now, that's the main reason I can't do the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe right now, because if you guys know, Spider-Man, when he gets his powers, he goes out and tests them with wrestling, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I want to do it as accurate to the comic books and Tobey Maguire as possible. So it's going to be kind of a little bit of everything. It's going to have, you know, bits and pieces of Tom Holland. It's going to have bits and pieces of Andrew. It's going to have bits and pieces of Tobey Maguire, and hopefully bits and pieces of the comic books as well as Insomniac. So hopefully all of those ideas combined into one version of Spider-Man hopefully will work out. It'll make sense once the connected universe actually gets started and everything kind of, I guess you could say, unfolds throughout the years. Because Spider-Man is actually going to be one of those characters you can grow up with, or will grow up throughout the universe, or throughout that series. So, you know, he's going to start off looking really, really young, and then by the time the, you know, universe is over or whatever, or if I decide to close out his character, he's going to look older. So that's going to be a really fun way to pay homage to everybody that I've mentioned so far. So, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, awesome version of the Marvel Legend figure, and I'm definitely going to be probably getting a second one of these so I can use it for a diorama setup. So, alright, now we've got the Dark Turtle. And yes, this is an actual thing that happened in the 1987's Ninja Turtles cartoon show, where Donatello, of all characters, dressed up like Batman and decided to do some crime fighting. I don't remember the entire episode plot. If I remember correctly, he has like some kind of amnesia, or like gets hit in the head really, really hard or whatever, to where he thinks he's a superhero. And then he made this Batman style costume and then went out and started crime fighting. Believe it or not, this is actually a very rare NECA character. Some of the ones that you find on eBay and whatnot, they go anywhere between like $200 to $300. I was able to get this one for less than $100, and that's a steal. And I got this at a mall, believe it or not, of all places. I got this at a mall. The lady who sold it to me was real, real nice. She was she was like saying how rare it was and how much she wanted me to take care of it, and I told her I was obviously going to take care of it because, you know, I'm a collector. I take care of stuff like this. I don't full on destroy them. Ignore the metalhead behind you, Darth Vader. Oh, and if I cough throughout this stream, I've been sick the last couple of days, and I'm finally getting over it, but I still have a lingering cough. So, Really good detail, all things considered. He's got a wire cape, which I think is awesome. I always love wire capes. Pretty decent, uh, paint and whatever for the shell, for the mold. His utility belt, I love because it's got the little turtles on his belt. He also comes with like a handheld turtle thing that he can hold. The mouthpiece does come off because you can actually switch it with, I believe, the turtle in disguise mouths. They do the same thing as like the really big turtles. If you do the quarter inch or quarter scale turtles, the bottom mouths can be switched out with different ones. You can do the same thing with this one, which I think is actually a really cool touch. The black, gray, and purple just looks really fun. The overall mask I think is so fun with the orange eyes, and then with the little cat like bat ears just look so fun, and he's got like a little black tab for some reason back there. So it's a really fun figure, and it's gonna make really fun to have this in my collection, just sitting there with his arms out like this, doing the traditional Batman thing. And even his logo and stuff is just so fun. There's one thing that's a little off-putting, and I know it's just because he's a Ninja Turtle figure, but he has no teeth. He's literally just got gums in his mouth. Like there's no teeth whatsoever. But that's just a minor thing. I'm gonna give this a solid 10 out of 10, mostly because of the lady who sold it to me. She was so nice, and I want to pay respect to her because she was absolutely awesome. And it's actually a really good figure anyway, so I probably would have given it a 10 out of 10 either way. Now, finally, let's get on to Ghost Rider. Now, obviously, this is not Ghost Rider's official motorcycle because Ghost Rider is not a bat. Although I could do that actually for the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe. Have Ghost Rider steal Batman's motorcycle, transform it into this thing, and then boom, bada bing, bada. There you go. You can have Ghost Rider rocking the Bat Cycle, essentially, or a version of the Bat Cycle. Okay. Now, I know I've crapped on, well, some people will say I've crapped on Marvel Legend action figures before, because they had like lack of detail, the arms didn't work, some of their accessories or whatever didn't work. I am eating all of my words on Ghost Rider because this is an awesome figure. I'll put a link in the description below on any of these guys if you want to try to get your hands on them. They're relatively inexpensive except for him. He is not inexpensive by any stretch of the word. But everybody else on this video is relatively inexpensive. So if you want to try to get your hands on one of these things, I'll put links in the description if you want to try to get them, provided I remember to do that. So he comes with two different hands. I don't have his box in here right now, but he comes with two different hands, two different heads, a chain whip, and like fire things that go around his arm, which is really cool. The sculpting for the head. Actually, let's go on and get to the neck first. The neck is so cool because it's literally like a skeleton neck with like a fire necklace around it almost. And I love that little attention to detail that they have. Obviously, his mouth can open up, which I think is really, really cool that they were able to do that. And it looks so cool too. So, if you see Ghost Rider in the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe and he looks like this, his mouth is most likely not going to move when he's talking because it would be too much of a pain in the ass to literally animate every single jawline his mouth is making, and nobody else can do that. So just probably to keep it simpler and easier, his mouth is most likely not going to move when he's talking. So, and then let's see what else. I was gonna say, for some reason he's got like this hole on his back. I don't know why the hell they have that. I guess so that way he can like ride his motorcycle or something. I don't remember what the hell these things are for. But he looks classic, and that's what I like about these things. They look good, but they also are not the best quality for some reason. So, well, looks like we lost Henry. That's okay. So we'll go ahead and just keep going. Somebody might show back up later. So all in all, though, I'm gonna say this is a badass figure. I love this version of Ghost Rider. I'm hoping at some point to add Nicolas Cage to the mix because why not? So, but yeah, no, this is good. I did find a motorcycle that is going to be much better than what he's got now because right now he's got nothing. So hopefully everything on that front works out. So, and then, yay, he's got the same chain whip that all Cosmic Ghost Rider has too. So, I'm sorry, I'm having too much fun here. Okay, so like I said, not bad, not a bad version of Ghost Rider. I do hope to someday get a 6-inch scale version of Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider, just because that's again my favorite version of Ghost Rider. Plus, it's more modern interpretation of Ghost Rider. This kind of feels a little bit too 70s, 80s version of Ghost Rider, which hey, I love the 70s and 80s. Okay, even though I wasn't born in the 70s or the 80s, I still love the 70s and the 80s. So I'm hoping to include have Nicolas Cage version of Ghost Rider probably end up being the main version, just so that way I can also have a human side of him too. Because right now, Ghost Rider would be strictly flamed out and not human formed. Because the human side that they have with this, his head is also on fire. So it wouldn't exactly work out so well. I'm sorry, I'm having too much fun with this. So, alright. We'll go ahead and put Ghost Rider back on the bike. And so as long as I can find a motorcycle for Ghost Rider that fits a 7-inch scale figure or a 6-inch scaled figure that looks good, really anything should work. But I think I found just the bike. Well, it's going to take me a little bit of time to get it because I don't have the time for it. Come on. Stretch the legs. Come on. And voila. Ghost Rider is now rocking the Bat Metal or the Batman Death Metal or Death Metal Batman Bat Cycle. There you go. Have him going. Give him the time of his life, man. Like, come on, you gotta give him the time of his life. Papa Wheelie too. There you go. All right. So, sweet. Let's see. What else was? I know it's also on the list, but I can't do it without having people here, or at least somebody here. It's funny that they have the same flaming chain whip that they've had probably for years, and they still use it to this day for Cosmic Ghost Rider. I think that's kind of so fun. Let's see, what else? Oh, I guess we can go ahead and start getting ready to talk about the scaling of these things, because that's going to be an interesting thing to talk about. I guess it's not that atrocious. Oh, that's fair enough. Okay. So, so like I said, the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe is going to hopefully start sometime this fall. If it doesn't start this fall, it's probably going to be closer to winter. So, Spider-Man is going to be the first officially established character. He's going to be the first one to have an origin story. He's going to be the first one to flesh out his character a little bit, and then I can go on through other stories throughout the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe. So there's only one teeny tiny little problem with that. I have two different versions of Spider-Man that are going to show up in the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe. The Last Stand Spider-Man suit is going to be his wrestling attire, mostly because I don't want to. Why is it on? There we go. Sorry about that. So obviously you can tell a difference in their height. End of days or end of world, whatever, Last Stand Spider-Man is like a solid, almost head taller than Tobey Maguire, and Tobey's Spider-Man is about the same size as Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which is going to be like the first version of Spider-Man in his official suit. It'll make more sense when the actual thing starts being made, but it's gonna look weird, and I know it's something that nobody's gonna complain about, because if I have Spider-Man standing there and he looks a little bit taller than everybody else, or a little bit taller than he would standing next to somebody else, and like once this suit goes away and then he's wearing, say, something like this, and he's talking to somebody that's like a full head taller versus he was slightly taller beforehand, it just, to me, it's just going to look a little off-putting, and I'm really hoping that nobody's going to say too much about that, because it's not the intention. It's just the character sizes for some reason that Marvel Legends does that. So hopefully nobody says too much on that, but yeah, for some reason Tobey and Tom Holland are basically the same size, and Spider-Man Last Stand is like a head taller than both of them. Which is weird, because this is going to be his wrestling suit, and then this is going to happen later. So speaking of wrestling, oddly enough, and Spider-Man, with the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe, I do not have really any wrestling characters. I only have two, and they are both the same guy. And that is Stone Cold Steve Austin. I've got this guy right here, and then I have the Ghostbuster version of Stone Cold in a cabinet. So, I don't really have anything else. So, obviously, since the Spider-Man Ultimate Deadpool connected universe thing is going to be the first major story, I want to kind of do it the right way the first time, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to get a wrestling ring. I'm actually going to get an ambulance that can get crushed. I'm going to get, a couple of different wrestlers so that way they can be shown on screen. And a handful of other people as background characters and cameos to help connect everything in a wonderful, lovely little package. So, very reminiscent to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. When he goes to fight Bonesaw McGraw, he's not going to fight Bonesaw McGraw in the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe. I originally wanted to have him fight the Undertaker, but I couldn't find an Undertaker that would work. So instead, he's going to fight Braun Strowman. So for those of you who don't know who that is, he's basically, his WWE persona is like the monster among men. He's like a really big, super shredded, big guy. He's like 6'8" or something like that. He's a very tall guy, and he's built like a tank. So having somebody like that go up against a scrawny person like Spider-Man is going to be perfect, because not only can I have Spider-Man literally get thrown around and have it make sense, it's also going to be so fun to kind of have some of those corny Spider-Man jokes sprinkled in throughout the fight as well. So the main reason, this is going to sound so stupid, the main reason I wanted Undertaker to be the wrestler that Spider-Man fought to test his powers is solely so I could pull the joke of, that's a cute outfit, did your husband give it to you? Only because Undertaker has that long hair, and Braun Strowman, the figure that I found, has no hair on it. He's bald. So I couldn't do that with Spider-Man. So they did a wrestling fight again. Yeah, it would probably be Rey Mysterio as a joke. And by the way, I love Rey Mysterio. You know, some people can on wrestling and whatnot. I like old school wrestling. I like wrestling from the '90s when it was a little bit more real than it is today. So that's my favorite version of wrestling. I still go on YouTube and whatnot and try to find different segments of stuff I grew up with. And fun fact for you, wrestling is actually how I learned to count to three. You can ask my mother, you can ask my father, and probably my grandmother. They will all say the same thing. Every single time I was watching a Stone Cold Steve Austin match or an Undertaker match or a Rock match or whatever, every time the referee would slide on the ground and start smacking his hand to end the match, I would always do the same thing as a baby or as a kid and do the same thing, and apparently that's how I learned to count to three. So, there's a little bit of, I guess you could say, ultimate Deadpool lore for you, or the backstory for you. So, a little bit of a weird story, but like I said, I'm getting off topic. So, I found a few different characters and whatnot that are obviously going to show up in the wrestling scene with Spider-Man. Obviously, one of them is going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's got the microphone. Stone Cold is actually going to be the Bruce Campbell of the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe. He is actually going to be the one who gives Spider-Man his name. He's going to be the one who announces him to the ring and whatnot. And, it's like, oh, if he can survive so many minutes with so-and-so, he's going to win the sum total of blah, 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 blah. He's going to be that character. So that way, Stone Cold gets to make an appearance, and Spider-Man doesn't have to fight him and humiliate him, because I love Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's my favorite wrestler. So, but I'm hoping that it all works out. There are going to be audience members that are going to be in the I guess you could say arena that Spider-Man's going to go to, that are going to be important. Now, since it's all going to be told or kind of shown through the perspective of Deadpool, Deadpool is going to kind of point out those people and be like, hey, is that so-and-so? Or, hey, is that so-and-so? I might want to keep an eye on these guys. Telling the audience, hey, these guys are important, keep an eye on them. So, hopefully, like I said, everything will make sense. I'm not going to try to rush anything in the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe. But like I have said before, Spider-Man is the first official. Iron Man, again, is one of those characters that is established, but he's not officially Iron Man yet. Batman is the same way. Batman is a character that does exist in the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe, but he's not officially established. He's more of like an urban legend, and stuff like that. So that way I can flesh out these characters, give them room to grow, give them their own stories, and hopefully have it all make sense. Wolverine is also going to be a very established character, but he's not, he's obviously not going to be Wolverine just yet. But he's still going to be there. He's still going to be kind of lurking around in the background, and then he can have his own stories here and there. So I'm hoping it all works out. And if it doesn't, well, then I can just pull the plug and be like, what Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe? I don't know what you're talking about. That never happened. So, but I'm hoping that I can do stuff like that, and it will hopefully work. I'm going to give it probably about a year. If it hasn't done anything awesome within a year, then I can just pull the plug on it and be like, what Connected Universe? That never happened. Very similar to the Battle Nexus. So, I don't want to get too much more into the Connected Universe things, because I don't want to spoil stuff before they happen. But I will say some of the, I guess you could say, older Iron Man suits, like from the concept series, and the stuff like that from the early 2000s, from the first movie and the second movie and stuff like that. The little fun, playable things that they did. Some of those are as background character or background armors. Don't expect anything to wear stuff like this, so don't expect Iron Man to to show up and start wearing this Iron Man Captain America suit. Don't expect that. Maybe one or two suits he might wear that look like this, but most of the time he's going to be wearing more MCU related armor. Um, but I can still have them as like background suits. So it's like, oh hey, look at that. I remember that. I remember that. So hopefully it'll kind of give you like it's more Easter eggs. That's the word I'm looking for. They're going to be Easter eggs throughout the entire connected universe. I already have the first few seasons planned. They're going to be done in seasons. They're not going to be done in phases. They're not going to be done in movies. Some of which are going to be done sort of in movies, but when it does the movies, I'm not gonna. When it's a movie, it's not gonna get uploaded in individual segments like they usually do. I'm gonna make everything behind the screens or behind the scenes, and then upload it all as one big thing, so that way it can be one fun, fantastic, hopefully decent movie event instead of having it being one part of the next part of the next part of the next part of the next part. Hopefully that'll keep people entertained and energized throughout watching the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe, and it's not just one part after the next part, after the next, after the next, after the next, after the next. I can actually flesh it out, do a fuller, more longer video, and then just upload everything in one shot. So, but I can also upload it separately on a different channel that nobody's going to know about. So that way I can connect everything and edit everything, and then I can just go, okay, I want you, 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 and combine it all into one said movie. Hopefully that works out very well. If not, then we'll just go back to doing the part segments, and hopefully that works. But, so, let's see, what else can we... I've already had people ask me if characters like, Freddy Krueger or Ash Williams or Michael Myers and Jason and stuff are going to be in the connected universe. Let's put it this way. They can exist there, but they may not get really any stories, just because it wouldn't make sense for them to get stories. If that makes sense, like, it wouldn't make sense for, Spider-Man or Deadpool or, just for, say, Iron Man or whatever to go to a cabin in the woods and then have Ash Williams show up out of nowhere to try to save the day. Because they're superpowered characters, Ash doesn't need to be there. Or it's like, Freddy Krueger, I will say, is going to have a slight cameo in a later, much later portion of the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe. And I can't say against who, and I can't say on what. So, but just know, Freddy Krueger will eventually show up in the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe, but he's not going to show up for quite a while. I've also had people ask if the Transformers are going to show up. If I could find Transformers that were in scale with everything else and have it not look weird, then yes, they could be. But really the only Transformer I have that would sort of be to scale with the 6-inch figures is a $80 Bumblebee that I had as a kid, and right now he's missing pieces, and it works, but surprisingly, but doesn't work as well. Same thing with Godzilla. I've had people ask if Godzilla, since I finally got a Godzilla figure, if Godzilla can show up in the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe. And again, same scenario. He can show up as a background character in the far background, so that way the scaling works. But if he was like, right here, he would be about as tall, the Hulk would be able to hit him in the nuts if if you wanted to go that far. So it wouldn't look right. The scale would not be correct. And I always try to be as in scale as possible with stuff like this. That's why it was so hard to find, or still so hard to find a motorcycle for Ghost Rider, because it's a 6-inch figure, and everything else I found is for, 7 or 8-inch figures. Because you have to have that scaling, or it's not going to work. So, let's see what else. I've also had people asking me this, especially since I announced that Spider-Man is going to be the first official guy, is when is he going to get the black suit? Now, I don't want to say too much, But I will say this: the black suit is going to be treated as comic book accurate as possible. Um, Not necessarily movie wise. Like, he's still going to be rageful. He's still going to have, the hatred and all that. And he's still going to lash out and whatnot and be a douchebag. But the comic book aspect of it, I can't say too much about it because I don't want to spoil what's going to happen. But if you know the story of the black suit, you should hopefully have some idea of what's going to happen. And it's going to lead to a really fun segue later. But again, I can't say too much about it because it would give away. But I will. Spider-Man is probably not for a while, just so that, cause, again, I don't want to rush, the introduction of Venom. I don't want to rush the introduction of the black suit. I want to have Spider-Man kind of go through several different adventures and then have, other people time to shine before giving him that black suit. So I most likely won't give him that suit until after season 1 is over. Or after the first, I guess you could say, segment is finished. Once everybody is established, or as many people are established, then I can go ahead and start introducing characters like Venom. I can start introducing characters like, the Cyber Turtles. I can start introducing characters like that. Because I've said this before, the Ninja Turtles are also going to be established characters, but they're not officially going to be shown till much later, mostly because the channel for the last year and a half has hardly done anything except Ninja Turtle videos. And I know there's probably several people on the channel who are just tired of Ninja Turtle videos. So that's why I've been trying to kind of phase them out lately. Because I know there's a lot of people who are probably sick and tired of seeing, Ninja Turtle this, Ninja Turtle this, Turtle this, Turtle this, Turtle this, Turtle this. It's just something that I had an issue with, and I'm trying to get myself out of that. So the best way to do that moving forward with the connected universe is not have the Ninja Turtles show up for at least probably half of season 1 to closer to season 2. But just know that they are going to be there. They are going to be established. Shredder's going to be mentioned. The Metalhead, Oswald, Killshot, Slaughter, all of those guys. They're all going to show up somewhere in the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe. But each one of them is going to have their own origin story get thrown out throughout the thing. So that way it's like, oh, this is why this guy is like this. Oh, this is why this guy is like this. This is why he doesn't do this. This is why he's a lunatic. Stuff like that. So it's going to be my way of kind of fleshing out those characters. So it's not like the characters are never going to be there. And actually, that's the main reason why I even started the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe was so I can flesh out the Cyber Turtle characters and do other stories that I've wanted to do for years. Because some of you guys might know this, I've been tossing around a Spider-Man origin story for years now. And I've never done it because I was so afraid I didn't know how to do it the right way. And the reason why it was never done with Lego, mostly because that trailer that I released was terrible, but it was because it was never going to work. But with action figure stuff, you can do more, you can animate more, you can express more. There's a lot more you can do. So that's why the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe, for the most part, is going to be action figure based. Now, that doesn't mean Lego stuff is going away permanently. I still have plenty of ideas for Lego videos and stuff in the future. I just have to fix the Lego studio. That's why we are currently right here. This is the action figure studio. This desk right here with this black backdrop right here, this is going to be the action figure studio. Product review studio, stuff like that. This is going to be kind of like the main setup moving forward. I just have to readjust it because this was a computer desk, and I don't have a computer in here that works worth a shit, so I'm just going to get rid of all that stuff and clear off this table so that way I can use it for action figure stuff. My new setup, once everything is properly done and I guess you could say worked out. So I'm hoping that stuff like that works. Um, so another thing that I want to try to start doing moving forward is sets. Like for background sets, because if there's one thing I've learned from the failures as Shredder's Rex Venge, and stuff like that, backgrounds actually do matter. Like Shredder's Rex Venge Part 2 is like the best example, because that entire first half of that video was Wolverine versus an evil Rex robot in a cardboard box, and I used the cardboard box to my advantage, having, holes get thrown through it, had, Wolverine get thrown around and, busting holes and all stuff like this. And having him use his claws to slide down the box. All of that was used to my advantage, and that video paid off for it. And then when I try to kind of redo the same thing with Part 4 speaks for itself, because it didn't really do anything. It's only gotten 5 views in 2 weeks. So, I know for a fact that video did not work. And that entire series is a failure, because it was rushed. It was a bad idea. It did not work by any stretch of the word. It was a good idea in my head. It was just not properly done. And mostly it's because Part 3 killed it, because I released it way too early and rushed it way too quickly. And everybody hated it, mostly because they thought Spider-Man died in it. That was not the case. He was supposed to show up in Part 6 or Part 5, one of the two. But speaking of which, that series is going to get 100% finished sometime this week, just so I can get it done, and then I'll move on to something else that hopefully will work better than the Shredder's Rex Venge, because as much as I personally like that series, nobody else did. So, and if you actually go and you watch that series, it's really not that bad. Part 3 is where it kind of starts to dip in comedy and quality. But if you ask me, Part 4 isn't that bad. All things considered, some of the fights that are in there are relatively decent. But it's not the best series I've ever done. So I'm man enough to admit that. I screwed up. And I rushed it, and it did not work. So that is going to be dead and buried tomorrow, or sometime this week. It is going to be 100% finished. Yeah, it would have. I think if I do more creative sets, it would benefit. Like I said, best example is Part 2 from the Rex Venge. That whole atmosphere was used to my advantage, and that atmosphere that was used, paid off. It made the animation more fluid. It made it, made it feel more contained, rather than just being an open space where anything can happen. So, I don't know exactly how I'm going to try to interpret sets and stuff like that in the background. Hopefully, I can figure out something, but just bear with me on it. This whole YouTube channel is low budget as it gets. So, I do try to do some nice tweaks and stuff here and there, and I'm also doing this all by myself. I don't have an entire crew of people that can build sets and do stuff like that. I'm doing this all by myself. So, please bear with me for just a little bit. There is one particular animated series that is definitely going to have custom-made sets, but everybody already knows this. It is the Deadpool Spends Five Nights at Freddy's video series. That entire video series is going to have custom-made sets specifically for the pizzeria part, so that way each room that Deadpool can go in and he can actually interact with stuff like that. He can get thrown through a wall. He can interact with the robots instead of just being at the security desk and have the security room be looking like this. All of that is going to hopefully look relatively close to either the movie or the video game. So that is another thing that I want to try to do relatively as soon as possible, is the Deadpool Spends Five Nights at Freddy's series, because that is something that I know is probably going to be a somewhat of a success, because it's Deadpool versus Five Nights at Freddy's. what could go wrong? And plus, I've been working on this and planning this for years, so hopefully that those years pay off because I have a relatively decent idea of how I want it to work, and hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully it's going to be funny, and hopefully it's faithful to the games because I'm a casual Five Nights at Freddy's fan. I like the games, I like the movie, but I'm not like, super deep into the lore like Matt, Pat, Markiplier, and anybody else like that. I'm not big into the stuff like that, but I know enough about the games, enough about the lore to enjoy the stuff that they present. So, but hopefully, Deadpool spends Five Nights at Freddy's is going to be a relatively decent success. And if not, then I can just put it under the rug like I did the Nightwing sequel that still has not happened. Even though that was supposed to happen 3 years ago, and that still hasn't happened. So, ow, ow, my neck. Okay. Let's see what else. What else? There's a couple other things I wanted to kind of discuss with, but I can't really say much about it because it would go into spoiler territories for things. So, shit. But it was important too, and there was another thing. It was another topic that was important, and then it had to do with like a channel update. Shit. Okay, well, if it comes back to me, I'll say it then. But for now, we'll just keep moving on. So let's see. Some of you guys might not know this. I have gotten a 3D printer recently. I got it for Christmas this past Christmas. It is still not set up yet, but that's okay. We've been remodeling the house, and that obviously comes first. So hopefully, before too long, I will actually be able to 3D print parts and for future videos and stuff like that. At least I'm hoping I can do that. I'm not smart enough to do 3D printing stuff. I don't know how any of that stuff works. So hopefully we can make it work. Because there is one major thing that I want to print specifically for the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe, and that is the Iron Man Armor Gallery, or the Hall of Armor cell, I guess you could say what it is. It's literally like, it's a thing that stands like this tall, or whatever, about that wide, and it holds an Iron Man suit. And I found them on eBay for $75. I'm like, no, and that's just one. I'm like, yeah, I could probably 3D print something like that for free, and be able to have several of them. So that's one thing I definitely want to use that printer for. But there's a couple other things that I'd like to try to print for the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe. Again, I can't say what one of them is because it would lead into spoilerish territory, even though hardly anybody's going to know what it is. But so, real quick, while I have at least two people here, what has worked on the channel lately? Like, what is something that I've done lately that people actually want to see more of moving forward, so that way I can hopefully try to capitalize on that and actually have the stuff be successful and not a hilarious failure like Shredder's Revenge, because that started off as a success and then quickly dove into a failure. So I already know people are going to start saying Lego videos and more, bring back Lego videos and stuff like that. That's already on my list of things to do. But is there anything else that I've done lately that has worked, or some people think that it's worked, but I don't know. I don't want the channel to die, and I have a feeling that's where this is headed. If the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe does not work, I'm so afraid that the channel is going to die. Straight up having fun with story and action. Yeah, I can agree with that. I can agree with that because, like, one of the biggest successes, if not the biggest success I ever had, was done by accident. It was Target Deadpool. That is one experience I will never forget as long as I live. That video series was done by accident, and it ended up being like this ginormous success. Um, and I think it's what actually made the channel kind of blow up a little bit when it first started. But you know what? Let's go ahead and get to some Ultimate Deadpool story time. So here's Ultimate Deadpool story time. So fun fact for you, and we'll just discuss the Ultimate Deadpool. Uh, I guess you could say Target Deadpool story. Um, when that story was first done, and it was Deadpool versus Death, and it had Death from the Gravity Man series. Um, as the one putting the wager on Deadpool's head for Deadpool to get killed. That was all done on accident. Um, I was literally just trying to make a video one night, and I was just looking around. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I have somebody go after Deadpool? Have somebody who's trying to kill Deadpool just for some random reason. And that's exactly what happened. I started putting a whole bunch of characters together. I started making Deadpool kill random characters trying to kill him. And then I came up with the idea, it's like, okay, well, if people are trying to kill him, how much should it be? And then it's like, okay, we'll have him have like a $1 billion bounty on their head, on his head, and have him be the target instead of him being the, like he's a mercenary, have him be the one that gets killed. So, and I thought it'd be fun. So I'm like, okay, I'll roll with it. And I made the first part, and it worked. I made the second part, it did even better. I made the third part, it did even better. And then I did the fourth part, didn't do as great, but it was still relatively well received. And everybody loved it. Everybody loved Target Deadpool. It was probably one of those things that I could never recreate. And I know for a fact I could never recreate it because I have tried doing it again with Deadpool's Vacation. Now, Deadpool's Vacation was another one of those things that it was kind of a success, but it was also kind of a failure. Again, that was also kind of done on accident. I was literally just trying to make a sequel to a series that I had done unintentionally, but also trying to kind of bring everything together, like Deadpool's Red Brick, The Invasion, basically stuff that Deadpool had been, kind of a part of throughout that time period, And to me, Deadpool's Vacation was kind of the thing that both sealed the deal and ruined it. Captain Gravity. That's cool. That's cool. I'll have to look into that. If you have a video on Captain Gravity, I'll have to look into that because that's another thing I've had people ask me is Gravity Man gonna show up in the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe? And my answer is always going to be the same, and it's going to be determined. If I can find someone or find a character or 3D print something that I can mock up to make it look as close to the Gravity Man persona character that I would have for the Lego stuff, he can show up. His Rogues Gallery, however, may not show up, like Slimeball, Inferno, you know, Jackhammer, Static Shock, and Death especially. Those guys may not show up, but Gravity Man himself does have a possibility of showing up. If I can make something or find something that would work relatively well for Gravity Man. Otherwise, he's going to stay strictly towards Lego stuff. So, but, and that's another thing that I've wanted to do forever is make another Gravity Man movie. But the main issue with that is the old channel. And I say this all the time, and it's just I'm so scared to do a Gravity Man movie because the story has changed and some of the plot reveals have changed. Like the entire thing would not be the same thing that it was on the original channel. And I need to keep telling myself that it's not going to be the same. But I also know that if I do that, it's going to piss off so many people because it's going to be like, well, this was different in the original. This was like this. This guy actually was this person. And this this character was revealed to do this, and it's just like, it's one of those things that I just need to get over and just make the damn movie, because, the first movie would obviously be the origin story, and then the second movie I could do, a little bit more with the character, but it's just one of those things that would always be in the back of my head of, oh, people are going to complain about this. Oh, people are going to say, well, this wasn't like this. This wasn't like this story point wasn't this. And it's just, I need to hurry up and get past that. But at the same time, the Gravity Man movie on the original channel was a humongous success because it was an original character that got a full-on movie, and it worked. Hang on, I didn't read the comment. I always did like Gravity Man since he was one of your original characters, taking inspiration from comic books while still, of course, giving your own. Yeah, Gravity Man is one of those characters that is unique enough, but is also heavily inspired by other characters. Obviously, a main one would probably be, like he's more of like a stunt guy, like a stunt scientist. At least that's what the original idea was. But Gravity Man is one of those characters that it's like, it's weird, but if it's done the right way, you can do anything with it. And, I've always had people say, you should have, Spider-Man team up with Gravity Man, or you should have, Ghost Rider, Hulk, Batman, you should have these guys fight him, and it's like, yeah, but at the same time, part of what made the first Gravity Man movie so good was that it had no connected characters whatsoever like that. It did not have Spider-Man. It did not have Captain America. It did not have any of the other characters from Marvel. It didn't have any DC characters. It was just simply the Gravity Man characters, and I think that's what made that movie so good. So if I were to go back and remake it and have Spider-Man be there, have the Hulk be there, have, Batman show up, have Superman show up, it wouldn't be as good. And I'm always afraid that if I were to do something like that, then those characters would kind of take away from the Gravity Man character. Very similar to how when I did the Nightwing movie, that which was a humongous failure, that movie focused way too much on Batman because he was there most of the time. And he kind of took away from Nightwing's story, and that was more of a Batman movie with Nightwing in it, or a Nightwing movie with Batman as the main focus, and Nightwing was just kind of a side character. I was always afraid I was going to make the same mistake with Gravity Man and have, if Spider-Man or something like that showed up, it would focus too much on them and not the main character. So that's why they were always supposed to be two separate things. But if I do have Gravity Man show up somewhere in the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe, then obviously that would be a little bit different, because then I could already establish everybody else first, and then once it's his time to shine, then hopefully it would work out just as well. But Gravity Man has always been one of those characters that I've wanted to do stuff with. I've wanted to push forward further, but every single time that I've done it, or every single time I've thought about doing it, it just always, in my head, I always keep telling myself, it's not going to be good, it's not going to be the same, it's going to be different, people are going to hate it. And I need to hurry up and just get past that. It's my personal problem. But, I think some of my bigger successes have been with characters that I never thought were going to work. The best example I can come up with off the top of my head is Metalhead. Metalhead is probably the most successful character I think I have ever created throughout the entire history of my, I guess you could say, YouTube career in general. And that's not just on this channel, that's on the other channel as well. He was a humongous part towards the later... What is this? No, especially if it was benefits the story. Yeah, I do agree with that. I do agree with you on that. There's a reason people liked it in the first place, because it was different. And yeah, I mean, if it benefits the story, I know I know it would be a good change, but at the same time, it's always the thing in the back of my head that says people are going to say something about that, even though I know most people are not going to say anything about that because most of the time it's going to be newcomer people. But it's just one of those things that's always in the back of my head is like, if you do this, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. People are going to hate it. It's going to suck. And it's one of those things that's always in the back of my head, and that's why I've never pulled the trigger on it. But I just need to hurry up and get past that and go ahead and make a Gravity Man movie. So hopefully by sometime next year I'll be able to do something like that. But like I said, I want to try to get the Ultimate Deadpool stuff established, or the Ultimate Deadpool connected stuff established first, and then go into stuff like that. Because that's all. When it's not a connected universe thing, I'll make sure in the title it's not. So like on the title of each video, it'll say either connected or canon, or season 1 episode whatever, or something like that to let you know it's canon. But then if it doesn't have that tag, it's not canon to the connected universe. So like if Metalhead shows up, to fight Ghost Rider or something, and that hasn't been established yet into the connected universe, hopefully that should be a red flag of, oh, these guys aren't established yet. This is not a connected universe story. Okay, great. I can still enjoy this as a regular video. Or, obviously if it's a Lego video, that's not going to be connected to the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe at all. Anyway, so hopefully it'll hopefully all make sense once the connected stuff starts coming out. But as I was saying, Metalhead is one of those characters, I think is actually the main character that built this channel in a weird way. Because without him, the original channel would have not succeeded. This channel would not have succeeded if it was not for Metalhead. Because he's such such a unique and weird but fun, overpowered character. Especially his original stuff was overpowered as hell. Me and my brother have always talked about how overpowered he was when he was first created. Even now, he's still kind of an overpowered character. That is what made him fun. And that alone is what made, I think, the channel successful. Is because people kept coming back to see, oh, this guy is back. Oh, this guy is cool. This guy is different. He looks really fun. And then, like, the original channel especially, like, he was a big character. And he got a massive push on the old channel before it died. And then even on this one, I gave him a pretty decent push in terms of those stories and badass character developments and stuff like that. And he has been a humongous success. Like, anytime Metalhead is on screen or Metalhead is in a video, that video is almost guaranteed to do something good because it just has him in it. So that alone kind of makes me feel good that I made a character that is that recognizable and is that loved, because I've never really told anybody this before, and I'm a little hesitant to do it now. There's a reason Metalhead's origin story was originally changed from having it being Thanos being the one who turned Metalhead into Metalhead or caused him to look like that, to where it was now Leatherhead who was doing it to kind of keep in continuity with actual Ninja Turtle characters. There's a reason for that. Just before the original channel got taken down and everything got shut down, somebody who had claimed to be a Nickelodeon official or a producer or something watched one of the Metalhead videos that he was in and liked him so much that they were wanting to try to kind of bring him into their show or movie or whatever that they were working on at the time. And I had the email, but then obviously when the channel went under and everything else, it went with it. So unfortunately, I don't have any proof on that. But trust me when I tell you, somebody claimed to be from Nickelodeon, wanting to use Metalhead as an actual character and have him be an actual Ninja Turtle character moving forward. At least that's what they claim to have had. I'm still calling BS on it because I've never heard anything back from him since. I've never heard anything from it at all. And Metalhead still has not shown up in any Ninja Turtle content video, so obviously that never happened. So my guess is it was just somebody trying to screw with me. But can you imagine, though, for instance, if that was the case, if that was an actual executive or something that ran with Nickelodeon and they're like, hey, this guy is cool, let's bring him into our actual stuff. That's one of the reasons why Metalhead's origin story sort of changed. Because originally it was Thanos who beat the crap out of Metalhead and basically killed him to the point where he had to be rebuilt. But in the new continuity, it is Leatherhead who's the one who does that to him. Mostly because, Leatherhead is A, as a Ninja Turtle character, and B, is still strong enough, especially if you go off of comic book Leatherhead, or 2003's Metalhead, which is basically what all the Ninja Turtle, Cyber Turtle characters are based off of, or in that universe, they're based off the 2003's universe. Leatherhead from that show especially kind of fits in with someone who could do something like that to Metalhead as a character. So he could rip his arm off. He could break his wrist to where he can't use it anymore. He could shatter his legs, shatter his skull, break his spine, sever his spinal cord. He could do all of that and have it be believable that an alligator did that to somebody. And while, yes, Thanos obviously would be able to do the same thing, Thanos is obviously not a Ninja Turtle character, so that's the main reason why Metalhead's origin story was tweaked just a little bit to where instead of it being Thanos that did this to him, it's actually Leatherhead. So, and I've always liked the Leatherhead idea better anyway, just because it makes more sense. In the comics and the 2003's Ninja Turtle show, Leatherhead is friends with Utroms, and is always trying to get back to them because they were kind of like his family. And he always tries to build like a teleportation device to get back to them, and that's what Metalhead's origin story kind of evolved to. He goes to try to get the teleportation device for Shredder, not knowing that a 10-foot tall mutated hulking alligator or crocodile is there, and he literally gets the crap beat out of him to the point where he's dead. And then is resurrected 3 years later and turned into that. So, Thanos was fun, but Leatherhead makes more sense. So, but like I said, he's just one of those characters that really built the channel. I can't stress that enough. Metalhead is what built the Ultimate Deadpool channel in general, because seriously, without him, this channel would have died years ago. I'm not even kidding. Like, seriously, that's no joke. Because again, he was just such a unique character, but he's also like, I wouldn't say he's relatable, but he's just such a badass of a character that he's too overpowered. That I think people like that overpowered side. But unfortunately, when he does get put into the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe, he's not going to be as overpowered as he is. He's still going to be a badass, but he's not going to be as overpowered as he's been for the last several years. So hopefully that doesn't piss off anybody. But let me know what you guys think of that. Do you want Metalhead to still be a badass, but not as overpowered? Or just kind of leave him the way he's been for the last, 2 or 3 years. So. But I still have plenty of time before he gets established into the universe anyway, so I can still flesh out his character, and he can still have the same story, just, he can still get his butt kicked from here and there and still be a threatening villain. Or threatening villain-like character. Because I've been telling my brother this for years. Metalhead is a complicated character, And if you do it right, it makes sense. If you do it wrong, it's a terrible idea. So, there were. Yeah, I agree with that. Making him a little bit less, making him less overpowered would force him to find a creative way to still be a badass while being vulnerable. Yeah, but I don't, here's the problem though, and I've told my brother this before too. Metalhead as a character is supposed to have a reputation of basically never been beaten. He's never lost a fight to anybody. And that's kind of where the overpowered aspect comes into place because it's his reputation. And the way I've explained it to my brother, and I'm hoping it's going to make sense here too, is when like for instance when Darth Vader shows up on screen, you fear for everybody who's there that you care about because it's like, oh crap, Darth Vader's here, shit's gonna get serious. You don't know who's gonna live or who's gonna die. That's kind of the like fear factor that Metalhead is supposed to have. So it's like whenever he walks into a room and somebody knows who he is, they know his reputation, they fear for their life because he could kill them without even trying. And that's kind of where sort of a John Wick situation where he wins every time but still gets his ass handed to him relatively fair amount. Okay, now I've not had anybody compare him to John Wick, but only because I haven't watched any of the John Wick movies. I know, shame on me. It's on my list of movies to watch. So I get that, he wins every time, but it still gets his butt kicked. So that's fair, but like, and like I said, I've tried figuring this out for years. So yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I would probably get kicked out of those. But I want to watch the John Wick movies. I keep forgetting to watch them, and every time I go to like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna show. Oh, hey, look at this, and then I go off and I watch something else instead. So I need to just sit down one weekend, watch all of the movies, and be like, okay, now I'm caught up with the John Wick stuff. Okay, great. So, but I've never had anybody compare Metalhead to John Wick, so I appreciate that, I guess, because I know John Wick is a very big badass, and people love him because he's a badass. So, but again, that's the kind of reputation that Metalhead has. He's got the reputation of if he's in a room, everybody who's there who knows his reputation, they fear him because of his reputation. And I'm afraid if I take away his not overpowered stature, but to where people can actually beat him, and like say Spider-Man and Metalhead are fighting. If Spider-Man wins that fight, then it'd be like, oh well, this guy can beat him, but nobody else can. It's like it's one of those things that it's a very complicated thing, and it's mostly just because of how I wrote the character several years ago, and I so many people like that version of the character that I don't want to do it wrong. So, if that makes any sense whatsoever, please bear with me. He's one of those characters that I want to do right, but I don't want to do it to where he's like a god level threat. Because that's essentially what he was in the original channel. He was basically a god. Nobody could hurt him. Nobody could, harm him. He showed up, he kicked everybody's ass, and then he went about his daily life doing badass things. And I don't want to do that. But at the same time, I don't want to make him a wimp either. So it's complicated. At least for me, it's complicated. So, I misread that. I would get a kick out of those movies. Not I would get kicked out of those movies. Okay, I'm sorry. I misread that. Yes, I probably would get a kick out of the John Wick movies because I love action. I love Keanu Reeves, even though I think he's a very overused actor. Not overused, but just he's in a lot of things. Very similar to Tom Cruise. But, I do respect Keanu Reeves because that man is probably like, I think he's pushing 60, or he's in like his mid 50s, and he's still doing action scenes and stunts and stuff like that. And you got to give props to them being able to do that at that age. Because like 60 and 50 in Hollywood terms is still young. So, Keanu Reeves is pushing it, and he's still doing all kinds of crazy stunts. Tom Cruise is doing the same shit with the Mission Impossible movies. He's again up there in age, and he's still doing all these crazy stunts. So I got to give him props for that. But I need to just hurry up and watch those films because I've heard so many good things about them, and I'm sure I would like them. It's on my list of things to do, and I just keep forgetting to do it. So, but by this summer, I will watch John Wick, all 4 films. By this summer, I'm hoping, provided I don't forget again. But see, like I said, that's the kind of persona that I want Metalhead to always have. Is he walks into a room and his reputation alone scares the crap out of whoever is in that room. Just because they know his reputation. They know how tough he is. They know how much of a badass he can be. They know how easy it would be for him to kill them. That's kind of what his reputation is supposed to be. Very similar to Darth Vader. And I've had people compare this before. Vader and Metalhead is basically Darth Vader for Ninja Turtles. If you want to get really technical, because Darth Vader has no limbs. He got his butt kicked by his master, even though Metalhead didn't get his butt kicked by his master. And Metalhead has a very strong power set, very simple, well, not superpowers, but like he's got a very good skill set, very similar to Darth Vader. He's strong, very similar to Darth Vader. He's got no arms, no legs, very similar to Darth Vader. And he's just as like an intimidating presence as Darth Vader. So in a weird way, Metalhead is my version of Darth Vader through Ninja Turtles. So, and I've had several people make that comparison for the last several years. They're like, no, it's just this and this and this, and that's Metalhead. So it's like, yeah, but he's still a badass character, and people love him, so. But I'm hoping that I can find a good balance of having him being overpowered, but not to the point where he can't be beaten. Or, he's not invincible. Because I know that's a complaint in the John Wick movies later, is like John Wick just feels invincible. So that's kind of where I don't want to have Metalhead be, is like he's so skilled, but he can still get his butt kicked. I always thought of him more like a Boba Fett. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, because he's basically he's hunting you down. I think out of all the characters that would kind of be closest to Boba Fett, it would probably be like Killshot, because now I have not done Killshot's origin story yet, and I can't say too much about it because there's actually a pretty tragic backstory to him. But just know that he fits the bounty hunter persona a little bit better than Metalhead does, because there's a reason Killshot's called Killshot, and his actual name is going to change from Killshot to Orion, which is what Metalhead's, I guess you could say, Nickelodeon name would have been if that deal had ever gone through. Just because there's already a Metalhead character, and Orion would have been named after Orion the Great Hunter. But there's a reason why Killshot is going to inherit that name rather than Metalhead. So Metalhead's actual name is going to change. Not Metalhead's name. His previous Turtle Experiment name is still going to be TX-15, but his, I guess you could say, regular name is going to change from Orion to something else. And then Killshot is going to get Orion, and then Killshot is going to be his nickname. So Metalhead is going to be his official name, but his original name is going to be something else. So, mostly because he had Orion, and now it's time for Killshot to have Orion, because it makes more sense. with Orion the Great Hunter. And there's a very good reason that Killshot's going to have his name be after Orion the Great Hunter. And it's all part of his origin story. So, but yeah, no, I think as much as I love the idea of Metalhead being related, I guess kind of loosely based off of Boba Fett, and I appreciate that comparison, by the way. That's actually a really good compliment because I love Boba Fett, except for the Book of Boba Fett. That was not that was not Boba Fett, especially the like a bantha meme. That was not Boba Fett, but Boba Fett in general was a fun character. So, especially in the comic books, from what I've seen. So I do appreciate you making that comparison to the Metalhead character, because Boba Fett is a badass, but you know I do appreciate that comparison. So let's see. There's so many things I want to share with you guys, but it would all go into spoilers on future videos and projects. And if you saw the trailer for Deadpool Spends Five Nights at Freddy's, Deadpool doesn't like it when I spoil things, because that whole video was so fun to shoot, or that whole, I guess you could say, intro. Yeah, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, the problem with the Darth Vader type characters is that they have sort of a diminishing returns. Yeah, but let's put it this way. You know, Darth Vader is not going to show up in the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe. No Star Wars character is going to show up in the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe because it would not make sense. Um, why would Darth Vader show up on come to Earth for anything? You know, why would General Grievous come to Earth? I have two versions of Darth Vader, and that's it. So, you know, I just, it would not make sense to have Star Wars characters show up in the connected universe, or really anything in general. That's why I leave the Star Wars stuff to the Lego videos. But when Metalhead shows up, and you know characters like him are around, or he does his character stuff, he's still going to be able to get his butt kicked, but he's eventually going to win, because that way he can. That way I can. Now that I think about it, that way I can have both. I can have it to where he never loses a fight, but it doesn't. It's not easy. He doesn't make it easy. So it's like he'll still win, but it's not going to be an easy win like it usually is. Because like when he fought the Last Ronin, there were so many people saying that the Last Ronin should have mopped the floor with Metalhead. And that's true, because the Last Ronin is a stronger version of one of the turtles that survived. But Metalhead in his prime, in the original stuff, then this is the overpowered territory, was able to like break Hulk's wrist, dislocate it, one of the two, and was able to fracture Superman's arm. Now that alone is overpowered when you can actually do something like that. And that's one of the reasons why overpowered Metalhead has never seen the light of day on this channel. That was all stuff done on the old channel because it was just way too overpowered. He's still going to be able to catch Hulk's punches, or Hulk's first punch, like initial punch, but not without getting pushed back, 5 feet or something like that. So he can still catch Hulk's fist, but he's not going to be able to, break his wrist or anything like that like he did in the original channel. Because I remember I did do that when when Hulk first fought Metalhead in the original channel, um, Hulk Hulk had his wrist snapped with no effort by Metalhead's part. And then when Metalhead fought Superman, it was a similar thing. He was able to somehow dislocate his shoulder and was never really explained why or anything like that. So, yeah, he's not going to be that overpowered, but he's still going to hopefully be a badass enough to where people enjoy him and still love him as the character that he is. So, that's hopefully what the plan is going to be. And as long as I can interpret it the right way, it should be fine. Oh, and by the way, if anybody has questions on this live stream, feel free to ask them, as long as they don't dive into spoiler territories. You know, if you have any questions on certain characters or, you know, stories in general on the channel or whatever, please feel free to ask them. So, and I'll be more than happy to answer them as best as I can. Question and answer live streams. So, at least that's the plan. Let's see. What can I want to say something, but I don't want to say anything spoilerish. This is one of those times where I wish I could say what I want to say without the risk of getting in trouble. Oh, hey, we still have somebody watching. So let's see. It's gonna be a spoiler territory to the thing, and that part would get me in trouble. Let's put it this way: a lot of famous stories from comic books are going to be, well, some of my favorite comic books are going to be adapted into the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe. Oddly enough, 3 of them are Spider-Man stories, and 1 of them is a Deadpool story. So, but speaking of Deadpool, oddly enough, when he does show up in the thing, because he's going to be one of those characters that's established but not officially fleshed out, he's still going to be breaking the 4th wall from the beginning. Basically how Cusco and the Emperor's New Groove, broke the 4th wall and talked straight to the audience and kind of explained what was going on. Deadpool's going to kind of do that for the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe, because that's another complaint I've had from some people on the channel lately, is that Deadpool's been kind of phased out of everything, and he doesn't really do what he's supposed to do when he's actually on screen. And So that's one of the reasons. That's another reason why the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe is even going to be a thing. Is it's going to be my way of kind of setting new rules for the channel without really changing a whole lot of anything. Aside from wiping the slate clean from what I've already done previously. Because right now, the only thing that's really connected is the Cyber Turtle characters and the Target Deadpool and Deadpool's Vacation series. Those two things are like the only things that are really connected. Everything else is kind of like its own standalone thing. So I've always wanted to do a connected universe type of thing where everything is one continuous story, and be able to flesh out certain characters and certain story points from some of my favorite comic books and movies that I grew up reading and listening to and watching as a kid. So I'm hoping that I do this stuff justice, because I will say one thing about the connected story stuff is Ben Riley is going to show up somewhere in the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe at some point in the future. Do not expect to have him show up for quite a while, because I just don't want to rush that character into everything. So if you know that character and you know that story, that is one of the stories I would like to tackle throughout the course of the Ultimate Deadpool connected universe story trends, because that whole universe is literally just made so I can flesh out certain characters, do certain stories, kind of give my own twist on certain things, and kind of have everybody interact with literally anything that's possible. Um, yeah, I know the Clone Saga thing is always confusing and slippery, but the way I would probably go about doing it is have it be established from the beginning who is the clone and who is not. And I'm going to do it a little bit differently, because it's not going to be done the traditional way, because the traditional way is it's a clone of Peter Parker. And it's still going to be done as a clone of Peter Parker, but it's going to be done a little bit differently. He's not going to be wearing the Ben Riley suit just yet. Um, I can't say too much because it will spoil an Easter egg. But just trust me when I tell you, you'll know when I do the Clone Saga story. Because it'll make sense when you actually see it. But just know it's going to be basically the same story with my own little twist into it. So I'm hoping that everybody enjoys it when that does happen. It's not going to happen for a while. And while we're on that subject, there are not going to be any female characters in the Ultimate Deadpool Connected Universe for one reason and one reason only. I cannot do female voices by any stretch of the word. I have tried it before. It does not work. So, needless to say, there aren't going to be, references to female characters like, Mary Jane Watson. She can be referenced. You know, if I include the Fantastic Four, the Invisible Woman can show up, but she doesn't have to say anything. You know, characters like that, they can show up, but they don't necessarily have to say anything. Or they can just be referenced, and then it can be, something else like that. Or they can be a background character. But unfortunately, because I cannot do female voices, and I don't have somebody that I could, I guess hire to do female voices, I can't, I don't want to risk offending anyone trying to do that, because I know it would not work. So, as much as it's going to feel, I guess you could say, quote unquote, sexist, I don't want to risk offending anybody trying to do that. So the best way to do that is to not include any female characters that speak at all. Mostly just because I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh yeah, you tried to do this. This was a big mistake. Best example is in the infamous Kruger scene where he's talking with his wife, and his wife says, "Yes, Frederick." That infamous, god awful, high pitched Deadpool, ultimate Deadpool squealy voice for that one scene was that has haunted me the rest of my life because it was awful, and it was the main reason that I will never do a female voice again, just because my voice is deep enough to where I can't pull it off. I can't. It does not work for me. I've tried using voice generators. I have tried doing voice changing segments and editing techniques. Nothing has worked. So, unfortunately, there are not going to be any female characters present speaking roles, but they can show up. They can use their powers or whatever. They're just not going to. They're not going to talk. So, but unless I can find somebody, or if I have a girlfriend or whatever that'd be willing to voice those lines, otherwise, no characters like that. Just because I cannot do female voices by any stretch of the word. So, but oddly enough, speaking on Kruger, that is another movie that I've wanted to do kind of a redo for years, and I've just never pulled the plug on it. Very similar to the Gravity Man situation, because I know that there's going to be so many people who are going to be like, well, why is Freddy doing this? See, that didn't happen in the original. Why is this person die like this? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? Why is this here? And it's like Kruger is one of those characters, or Freddy Krueger is one of those things where it's like, you could do anything. It's not an established thing. Like Gravity Man, that's not established. Freddy Krueger is an established, but his origin story has never truly been shown. And I'm not talking about the 2010s remake where they do show his backstory. I'm not talking about that because that's just wrong, and no. I'm referring to the original. Yeah, Kruger was definitely a fun movie. I will never forget what started it. Was it again? Kruger was one of those things that was just done as a test, and it just blew. It was just a gold tier movie, and it was a long movie too. I remember how long it was. It was like 25 or like 50 parts or something. It was a long movie. But everybody loved it, and it was basically telling the origin story of what was Freddy like before he was killed, leading up to the point where him being burnt was. And I think that aspect alone is what made that movie so popular and so memorable. And it's one of those things that I've always been hesitant to redo because it was done so perfectly the first time. I would hate to try to do it again and screw it up. Kruger 2 is a big example of that because it was not a success by any stretch of the word. The only successful character in the entire second movie was the nerd, and the only reason why he was successful was because of his voice. But yeah, I'll admit Kruger 2 Kruger and Gravity Man were probably the best films I ever made on the original channel, because those two movies were so perfect that it was ridiculous. I know people are going to say that the Spider-Man movie was a close third place movie, but I hated the Spider-Man movie that I did on the original channel because it was just so awful. And the flame effects and everything that I had to do for it was just so bad because I destroyed so many Lego characters and pieces doing that movie. It was awful, and I hated that movie. I guess that was more of a grounded, realistic take on Freddy Krueger. So if I was to redo it, I could keep aspects in it while exploring it on the rest. Yeah, I could do it that way, but again, it's one of those things that it was done so perfectly the first time. I'm afraid if I were to try to do it again, it just would not work. So that's one of the reasons why I never did another one or never redid the first one because it was done so perfectly the first time. I'm afraid if I did it again, it wouldn't work that well. Because Krueger was it had a lot of thought go into it. It had a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot. There was a lot of thought process that went into it, and I think that's what made it such a successful was how much work actually went into it. And I could do the same thing now, but it wouldn't be the same, and I know it wouldn't be the same because that movie was done so perfectly that if I had tried to redo something like that now, it might be as successful as it was previously, but it wouldn't have that literal blood, sweat, and tears that went into the first time around. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think it would work right now. Needless to say, I may still try to do it at some point in the future, but right now it wouldn't make sense trying to do something like that because I don't think it would work, especially considering it was done so perfectly the first time. Gravity Man is the same way. That movie was done so beautifully the first time, it would almost feel like a crime trying to redo it and trying to make it better than that first one was. And the main thing with Gravity, I don't remember all of the story points that I did with Krueger. It's pretty self-explanatory. You start off with a guy who gets the sweater, and then he starts killing children, and then later, everybody in Springwood knows who it is, or knows who's doing it, and then the judge, the court systems or whatever fail, and then the parents get their revenge, and then he takes out the parents one by one. That's pretty much the whole movie from the original channel. So Krueger would probably be the easiest thing to recreate because it's a very simple story, and it's a very set in stone story. Man is not. I don't remember much of his story points because I do remember his origin because I created the character, but his origin was never 100% set in stone. Because sometimes he was a scientist, other times he was like an extreme, like movie star turned scientist or whatever for an experiment or something like that. Or it was always something different. It was never consistent. So that's one of the reasons why, Gravity Man was never officially brought back to do a remake movie because his origin is not as set in stone as Freddy Krueger's is. Freddy Krueger, anybody who knows that character mostly knows his origin story. He was a child killer, and then the parents got their revenge on him, and then he came back as a dream demon and started taking out people in their nightmares. It's pretty self-explanatory on Freddy Krueger. Gravity Man, however, is the guy who gets superpowers. Yeah, I guess you could look at the original Gravity Man sort of like Booster Gold, even though I had no idea who Booster Gold was at the time. I only recently found out about the character because I had watched Smallville for the first time ever a couple years ago, and then I was watching Booster Gold. I'm like, he feels a little too much like Gravity Man, except he's not a loser from the future. He's just, he's just a guy who does hardcore movie stunts that's also a scientist. Like it's weird, but that's kind of where Gravity Man's story goes. You know, he's basically a scientist that does extreme movie stunts on the side. So when he does this extreme stunt to go in space and, you know, not really a stunt, more of like a mechanic type thing. So he's more of like an extreme scientist that fixes things. So like he's still a smart guy, but he's also like really crazy too. So I mean, I guess you can say he does stunts, but also repair work. So he's a little bit of everything. But anyway, he goes up to space, try to fix this, you know, get some readings on this machine and fix it. And the anti-gravity in his boots kind of get fused with him, or like the energy that they produce get fed into his body. And he basically has the powers of gravity because his anti-gravity boots that can control gravity on him, they kind of took that energy and put it into his cells. So if that makes any sense whatsoever, basically a cosmic storm shows up. It's basically the Fantastic Four except for one person. Instead of five. Or four in some cases. So, you know, that's kind of what was Gravity Man's origin for the most part. It's, you know, he's a smart, you know, hotshot superstar guy who goes up into space, has a horrible accident. He comes back. He has basically the powers of his spacesuit, essentially. But he can't control his powers, so he has to have a device that basically hinders his powers on his back, and that's why he wore that backpack piece, because that backpack was what kind of stabilized his superpowers. Without it, everything would be floating, very similar to Jean Grey in the X-Men movies. So, but that's, and again, the first Gravity Man movie was done so perfectly that I'm afraid that if I were to go back and try to fix it or redo it, it would not work. So I'm sure it would, and it's one of those things that I'll probably do at some point next year anyway. It's just, I always have that hesitation. Even with Kruger, I still have that hesitation of it was done perfectly the first time. Don't screw it up. So, because there was another movie that I had canned. It was a sequel to a movie that actually happened, and it was Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, and it was a movie that was supposed to happen 3 years ago, but it never saw the light of day because I didn't want to have Freddy Krueger lose again, and since it was going to be based off the first movie, it was going to kind of be like the comic book in Lego form, and I just did not want to have Freddy Krueger lose twice, and I couldn't figure out a good way to make that movie, so it never happened. But who knows, maybe someday it'll happen, but as of right now, it's dead in the water. So, but anyway, that's pretty much it. I'll do another live stream like this probably either tomorrow or Wednesday, or well, later today or Wednesday, one of the two. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. For those of you who stuck around this long, I do appreciate it. Thank you for letting me yammer on for almost 2 hours. And like I said, I'll probably do another Q&A or a Q&A live stream or whatever, or just hang out with me or whatever sometime later this week, and we'll go from there. So thank you guys again, and I will catch you guys all next time on Ultimate Deadpool. Peace out. You guys are awesome. I'll catch you guys all later. Bye.